So like you just mentioned that, I guess indirectly, that there's some people that have an ideology that they're basically just out for themselves, or maybe just power seeking. I don't know how to exactly describe it in a couple of words, like psychopathic or control. They seek to control others. Is that fair to say? And they, I guess, if overpopulation is real, they also would like to have everybody else that's inferior dead. Is there this
Well,
group
I
existing?
think I think it's probably more than fair to say that not everybody involved in these nefarious operations have the same identical motive, except to say that it's not us. They're not there to help us. They're either there to further their own personal agenda or to further some ideology that they have become imbued with. Most of these people are what I would call collectivists. They believe in the ideology of collectivism as opposed to individualism, which is what I consider myself to be, an individualist as opposed to a collectivist. And the world is really in the grips of a battle between those two concepts right now. Most of the world, by the way, is already taken over by collectivism, and most people never have hardly ever heard the word. And when they do hear it, they're not quite sure what it means. So perhaps I should just state very quickly here, collectivism is the ideology based on the principle that the group is more important than the individual, and that the individual must be sacrificed, if necessary, for the greater good of the greater number. Now, that is the underlying philosophy behind communism, fascism, Nazism, socialism, New Dealism, you name it. All of the things that, in some cases, we even fought wars against. We have adopted that concept in America. That's also the prevailing ideology in Washington, D.C., and in every state capital in the United States. There are some minor exceptions, and I'm happy to report that there seems to be a drift back toward individualism again. But right now, the world is in the throes of collectivism. And these people that we're talking about are either collectivists or something even worse, which is, I think, a small group of them probably are part of some kind of an occult organization, and they may think that they're worshiping the devil or something like that. And they really have this, it's a different ideology than just collectivism, although they also are collectivists. But I think some of them are deeply involved in the occult. And I don't know how you would even classify people like that, because they're not even human as far as I can tell. Yeah, well, as I said a moment ago, the word for all of that is collectivism. And you could be a communist or a fascist or a Nazi, it makes no difference. They all believe the same. And although they do fight against each other, like Hitler fought against Stalin, and God only knows how many millions of people lost their lives in the battle between communism and Nazism and fascism, but they weren't fighting over ideology. They all believed the same thing. Something I learned to my amazement some years ago, after I read and really studied Karl Marx and Joseph Stalin and all the commies, hung out in the communist bookstore, read all their books. And then I started to read Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. I read Mussolini's stuff. I read Mao Zedong's stuff. And I was amazed. They all believe the same thing. It's collectivism. But they fight against each other for dominance. They want to be at the top of the heap. So once you understand that, when you say, well, so-and-so is a socialist, but not a communist, it makes no difference. We have people in our own government in America who call themselves Democrats, some who call themselves Republicans, and they're collectivists, the same as the Nazis and the socialists and the communists. They're collectivists. And so we got to quit trying to fit them into some kind of a phony category that doesn't mean anything. They're collectivists, and they can move from one group to the other and feel perfectly at home with each other, which is why some of the wealthiest men in the world worked perfectly well with the communists. In fact, they financed the communists. The communist movement, the Bolshevik Revolution, was financed by Wall Street and the City of London. The biggest money came out of what most people would call the coffers of the capitalists. They think that capitalism, anybody that has a lot of money is a capitalist. Well, that's not true. A capitalist is a person who believes in free enterprise competition and private ownership of the means of production. And most people think a capitalist is somebody that has a lot of money. The truth of the matter is, the people with the most money are the collectivists, because they use the power of government to steal the money from everybody else. And they may not technically own it, but they control it. And that's the test of really, who cares if you own something as long as you can control it. If I had that Rolls Royce at my disposal and the chauffeur every day, anytime I wanted it, I don't care if I've got a pink slip on it, if it's in my name. I don't have to own it as long as I can control it. So that's how it works. The collectivists of the world today, they don't technically own all this money or these assets, but they control them as though they own them. So it's the same thing. And people think that, well, this because they're rich, they have to be anti-communist or anti-Nazi, and that's not the case.
If you like that clip, please find the full link to the interview below. Also, do not forget to subscribe to this channel to keep up with discussions of God, morality, and human freedom.